Qwelmínte, Kenthen Thomas. I'm really happy to be coming to you today on Indigenous Day, a day that we can celebrate our indigeneity and really show what we're all about and show why we have our ways of knowing and our ways of being. So Secwépemc for joining me today, and today I'll be doing the story of how Coyote made a tree fall in love with him. But before I do, I'm gonna do what one elder told me is like doing the work. But it's just the protocols. Introduce some of my ancestors and my consultant, and make sure you know what I'm doing and why I'm here today. So my name is Kenthen Thomas, and I'm going to do a story today. And some of my ancestors and elders are Dr. Mary Thomas, Mark Thomas, Herbie and Vera Johnny, all of Secwépemc and Silk ancestry. And I have some parents who live in Salmon Arm. They're Jerry and Phyllis Thomas. And I have a son, his name is Susep Sewell. I also have a partner, and her name is Melissa, and she has some beautiful children named Tristan and Lexus. So I'm gonna get started with the story now. Oh, liked everyone. My name's Coyote, Secwépemc, and sometimes even Senghokolo. And I've come today to share a quick little story with you. You see, my friends, a long time ago, before any of you humans, any of you Qwelmínte were here, you were the Qwelmínte, the people that were yet to come. It was only us animal people here. And as you can see, I'm not full human, but I'm not full animal either. We had the best of both worlds. As the animal side of us, if you could fly, well, you flew. If you could run fast, you ran fast. If you were strong, you used your strength. If you swam in the water, you swam. But on the human side of us, oh, we had the best of both worlds. Not only did we have thumbs, we also had the ability to look into our future and to create and to make plans for the future. But we also had the ability to look into our past, to bring all of our perceived mistakes, all of our perceived successes into the present right here, right now, and to use them as tools to create and to plan for the future. Oh, we had the beautiful life of the animal people. And with all these beautiful gifts, we also had so many beautiful adventures, like the time me and all of the animal people went into the sky people's land to steal fire. And we had to be very quiet, and we snuck around. And when we stole the fire, we brought it back here to Earth. But that, my friends, is a story for another time. Or like the time that suckerfish, Chickamoose, tried to jump clear over the moon, and he busted into a billion little pieces, and little muskrat had to put him back together the best he could. But what does a muskrat know about putting together a suckerfish? But that too, my friends, is a story for another time. The story I want to share with you today is the story about how I, Coyote, Senghokolo, made a tree fall in love with him. And it starts right here in the village of Secwépemc. A long time ago, it was just me, Coyote, and I found myself in this little village of Qwelmínte, Secwépemc. And as I was wandering around, I was doing what coyotes love to do. I was running, I was jumping, I was having the time of my life. I love to be a coyote. When all of a sudden, I felt my breath escaping me. So I tried to catch it. But I couldn't quite catch my breath. And I felt my chest tightening up, and I went, oh! So I took off running, and I swam across a river, and I went up the mountains, down the mountains, and I went through all of the valleys, and I returned to my home, which at that time was Sistal, and also known as Adams Lake. And when I returned home, I leaned up against a tree, and I thought I was gonna die. I went, oh! But then all of a sudden, I felt my breath return to me. And once again, I was alive. And I thought to myself, what was that all about? What happened to my breath? Where did it go? Why was my chest so tight? And I thought to myself, oh, I don't know why. But then I didn't consider it for very long, because I'm Coyote, I'm Senghokolo, and I have so many more important things to do than to think about where my breath went that day. So I started doing those things, and I forgot all about that little misadventure. When all of a sudden I found myself in Qwelmínte, Secwépemc, and I was wandering around, when all of a sudden I felt my breath escape from me one more time. It escaped, and I tried to catch it again. I went, but I couldn't quite catch it. My breath, my chest tightened up, and I went, not again. So I swam across the river. I ran up the mountains, down the mountains, and I ran through all of the valleys. And when I returned to my home, Storyteller, also known as Adam's Lake, I leaned up against a tree again, and I went, and I thought to myself, this is it. I need to consider this a little more. I need to figure out what happens to my breath when I'm away from my home. So I thought about all of the things that were my home, what makes Storyteller, Adam's Lake, my home. It's a beautiful watershed that's the top of the Shuswap Lakes, and it's fed by Momich and Tum Tum Lake and all the beautiful Upper Adams River that feeds into it. And it has all these trees all over the place that are so close together they're almost touching. And all of the beautiful medicines that grow out of the earth, all of the small shrubs and plants and medicine, the malaman that grows close to the earth. And I thought to myself, maybe it's one of those things, or the lack of, into Qwelmínte. So when I went back into Qwelmínte, I investigated and I considered everything. I looked around at all of the small shrubs and medicines that grow into Qwelmínte, Secwépemc, and I realized it couldn't be them, because there's plenty of bunch grass and plenty of sagebrush everywhere. So it couldn't be the medicines. They have beautiful medicines in Malaman that grow out of Mother Earth close. And then I thought to myself, maybe it's the water, the Swalqua. But then I realized Qwelmínte has plenty of water. It just doesn't stay there like the lake. It flows right through. In fact, Qwelmínte means the meeting of the two waters, the North and South Thompson River. I looked at that and I said, it has plenty of water. But then, as I looked around, I realized there's not very many trees here. There's trees, but they grow in bunches and little splotches over there and over here and over there. There's not very many trees. And just as I said that, I felt my breath escape from me again, and I tried to catch it. And I felt my chest tightening up, and I went, oh, not again. And I swam across the river, and I went up the mountains, down the mountains, and I went through all of the valleys, and I returned home to Storyteller for once again. And once again, I felt my breath come back to me. And that's when I realized it has to be the trees. It must be the trees. So I went back into Qwelmínte for a fourth time, just to verify and confirm what my truth was. And when I arrived into Qwelmínte, Secwépemc for a fourth time, I just stood there, and I couldn't help it if I looked good while just standing around. And all of a sudden I realized, yes, it must be the trees. And just as I said that, I felt my breath escape me again, and my chest tightened up. And I didn't try to catch my breath this time. I just swam across the river peacefully, and I went up the mountains, down the mountains, through the valleys. And when I returned home again, I leaned against a tree and I went, so I returned to my home for a fourth time, and I leaned up against a tree. And once again, my breath came back to me. And that's when I knew it had to be the trees. But one thing I witnessed while I was watching the trees and considering all this, I saw that the trees didn't love themselves, much less anyone else. Every time the roots or the branches would accidentally touch the roots or branches of another tree, they would cross. They would pull away from each other in disgust, and they'd go, ew, get away from me, stop touching me, you stop touching me. Oh, I would witness this and watch this. And I realized that the trees didn't like themselves, much less anyone else. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna need to talk to these trees anyway, and talk to them about their breath. So I went up to a tree and I walked up to it and I went, "White tree, hello, how are you today? My name's Coyote, Secwépemc, and sometimes sing Hokolo. And I need to talk to you today about your breath. You see, I believe your breath belongs all over Mother Earth, not just close to you." And while I was talking, this tree just looked down at me and went, "You're just a dog." And I went, "Oh, how rude. I'm more than a dog. I'm Coyote." And the tree swung its branch at me and just narrowly missed my head. So then I went up to a second tree and I gave him the same spiel. "What? Coyote, Secwépemc, and sometimes sang Hokolo, and I want to talk to you about your breath." And while I was talking away to him, he just shook all his leaves on me and buried me in his leaves. And I went, "Oh, another rude little tree." So I went to a third tree and I tried the same thing. "What? Coyote, Secwépemc, and sometimes sang Hokolo, and I want to talk to you about your breath." But then the tree swung its branch and narrowly missed my head. And I ducked and I ran away and I went, "Oh, this isn't going to work." So I toured the entire Secwépemc. I went all the way up to Jasper, along the Rockies, all the way down the Rockies, all the way past Invermere. And when I arrived there, I went up around the Arrow Lakes, all the way up to Vernon. And then I went past Pillar Lake and I came all the way up to past Williams Lake, up past the Secwépemc and all those areas in the Williams Lake. Then I went shot right back up to Jasper again. And while I was doing this, I was looking for a tree, a specific tree, a tree so big, so beautiful, that if there was a cookbee of all the trees, this would be it. And sure enough, I found it up near Jasper, a tree so large that it took me a long time to walk around it. And when I stood there, I didn't give it the same spiel. I didn't explain who I was and what I was doing there. Instead, I sang it a coyote love song. I went, "Ooh." And this is the same song you might hear me singing to the moon in the middle of the night. Ooh. And when I was done, I gave it a big hug. I went, "Hmm." And I gave it a kiss. I went, and I said, "I love you, tree, even if you can't love yourself." And the tree looked down at me and it panicked. It went, "Oh, get away from me, you little dog." Who wouldn't panic if a little dog kissed and hugged you? And but I didn't stop there. I came back every single day for 4 seasons, through the spring, through the summer, through the fall, through the winter, and back to spring again. Every single day, sometimes 2-3 times a day, I would sing the same song. Ooh, hug, kiss. And I would say, "I love you, tree, even if you can't love yourself." And for the first 6 months, the tree would look down and go, "Get away from me, dog." And and the second 6 months, it would fake it. It really loved me. It would go, "Get away from me, you little dog, get away." And then finally, in the last little bit there, the tree would look down at me and it would show its respect. It would show its love. And it would go, "Oh, there's my good friend Coyote. How are you today?" And I would look up at the tree and I would say, "Oh, I'm good, tree. How are you?" Oh, we built a beautiful, loving friendship and relationship. And then that's when I witnessed another miracle. You see, when I watched these trees and I watched that original tree stand there, the roots of that tree started spreading out and touching the roots of other trees. The branches would swing out and touch the branches of other trees that surrounded that tree. And those trees, at first, acted in disgust. They would pull away going, "Oh," but then they would feel that love. That love would spread through its veins all the way into its heart. And then they would feel that love in their heart, and it was like a breath of fresh air. They would go, and they spread that love all over the Secwépemc. Then they spread that love all over Turtle Island, which we know as North America. Then they spread it through the waters, all over Mother Earth. And before you knew it, every single plant, every single tree that shared the land, now knew what love was. And I went back to that original tree and I went, "White tree, hello, how are you today?" And the tree looked down at me and it said, "Oh, white coyote, my good friend, how are you today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm good, tree. I want to talk to you today about these Qwelmínte." And he said, what are those? And I said, they're going to be people who live here and roam on the earth. They're going to do so many wonderful things. They're going to have this ability to look into the future and to see into their past. And he looked down and he goes, oh, tell me more. They sound wonderful. So I told him about what they look like. Their hair, their teeth, their noses, their feet and their toes, and all that makes them human. And that's when the tree said, oh, they sound wonderful. Hey, are they going to make a mess while they're here? And I looked up and I laughed and I said, they probably will. But that's the thing about humans. They'll learn how to clean up after themselves eventually. And the tree said, oh, they sound so wonderful. Tell me more about them, Coyote. And I said, and he asked me, can they fly like a spuya, like a bird? And I said, no, ta'a, they have skinny little arms and they don't have any wings. And he said, oh, that's too bad. Are they at least fast, like a cheetah or a cheat? And I said, no, ta'a, they're pretty slow. And they're going to be food for a lot of other animals before they figure it out. And he went, oh, are they at least strong so they can defend themselves? And I said, no, ta'a, they're pretty weak compared to a bear or even a cougar. So they're going to take a lot of beatings for a while. And the tree said, oh, they sound so weak and pitiful. How can we help them? And that's when I told them about how the four-leggeds are going to give themselves for clothing, for warmth, and for food. How some of the small brushes and small plants that grow close to Mother Earth are giving themselves for medicine and food and nourishment. And then how some of the other trees are giving themselves for tools and implements and lodging for homes. And the tree said, oh, this is wonderful. What more can I do? The tree wanted to do more. And that's when I knew I could tell him my story. So I told him my story of when I was in Qwelmínte. I couldn't breathe. But when I was next to a tree, I felt this breath give me life. And it didn't take the tree long to realize what it needed to do. And in that moment, the tree said, I now know what I need to do. And it looked down at me and it said, Coyote. And I said, Ma'a tree. And it said, from this day forth, I and all of the other plants on Mother Earth will share our breath with not only close to ourselves, but all over Mother Earth. We will take their breath and clean it for them. And in return, we will give them our breath. And that, my friends, is a story of how I, Coyote, made a tree fall in love with him.